There we go. All right, and go. Nope, wrong button. There you are. Hi. I think everything is working. Yes, hello. Hello, everyone. I am sorry if I missed anything. I think we're good. I think we're okay. But you know how VTuber streams go. Little scuff. It's part of the program. Hope you're all having a good week. What music is that? So that was a fan rendition of Zero from Ace Combat Zero. No buttons left unpressed. Yes, we must press every button. Twice even. For good measure. Let me say hi to you guys. Hello, Standing. Hope today's stream went well. I hope so as well. It has been... This is a crazy week for me. We've got a deadline that we are trying to hit. Basically trying to get a bunch of stuff done by the end of the week, and so we're not crunching. Despite what I said in the go live message, we're definitely under a lot of pressure. Well, like, they're not even putting the pressure on us, right? Like, we're not getting squeezed, but there's just a lot to do and not a lot of time to do it. And I'm like, if this is not even as bad as actual crunch is, we need to abolish crunch. It is unacceptable for people to be like more even more stressed out about getting all their tasks done on time. So yeah, that hasn't been a lot of fun, but it's okay because once we're done here, we should be, I don't know, May I think will be comparatively laid back. I think there'll be a lot of time just to sort of wind things down. That is my hope anyway. Aside from that, I guess it's been okay. How's everyone's weekend? Hope everyone got some good rest. Hope you guys got to do something fun. I went on a nice long bike ride. It was really good on Sunday. Maybe overdid it a little bit, but it was a fun day. It was a fun day and I felt really good about it. So no real complaints there. What was I gonna say about? I was gonna say something else about work. Yeah, so just because of the deadline stuff, like I mentioned on Discord, there might be some variability with the streams. Like, we might start a little bit late if things are going really crazy. Might have to cancel Thursday, but we'll see what's happening. Probably shouldn't be a problem. Don Montoya, thank you very much for the follow and welcome in. I hope you're having a good Choomsday. Good weekend, very nice weather to be out. Yeah, it was so pretty out. It hasn't been so pretty the last day or two. For some reason, the start of the week is like, it's been very overcast and whatnot, but it looks like it'll get better again, which is good. The ride that I did was about 36 miles. So the fact that I can do that pretty consistently is like, I want to see if I can start to push it up, right? The ride out to the city that I did as sort of the capstone of last year was a little over 40. So I want to start trying to do that again and do it more consistently. And then there's another route that I can do, or an extension of that route that would take it up to 50, and then I can extend that to 60. So that's sort of my end of the year goal, is to be able to do a 60-mile ride, which would be like an all-day affair. But it should be fun. I think it'll be a fun time if I can get there, and I just want to see if I can do it. So yeah, I did that. I got some more work done on the model. I'm learning a few things about some of the newer features in Live 2D. There apparently blend shapes have been there for a long time, and I just never knew about them. I'm finding interesting things that I can do, and I'm really curious to see how I can utilize them. Actually, now that I think about it, I'll need to look into some stuff. So blend shapes are like a variation of parameters, which they're interesting because parameters work. How do I describe this? So a parameter is sort of a value that you can set through different ways, right? So like I can have an option to put my poncho on, right? And that is just setting the parameter of whether the poncho should be on or not. Or I can have, parameters for moving myself around in different ways. And that's responding to the capture data, the face capture data. But if I have, say, two things, or if I have something that is hooked up to two parameters, then it's sort of like, those gene tables where you have, like, variable A has two possibilities, and then variable B has two possibilities, and so now you have 4 combinations. The parameters work the same way. The more parameters you attach to a single object, the more combinations you have to work with. So it can get very complicated tracking all of the parameters depending on how many are hooked up to a thing, and then making sure that every combination is working as intended. Whereas blend shapes seem to just work on top of the parameters. So it's very nice for just having like a universal state change for certain settings, as opposed to something that just sort of has to like play nice with all the other parameters that you have set up. So I've gotten it to work for a few things pretty well, and there's one that I want to use it for that I think will sort of redo some of the work that is already on the model in a nicer way, right? It'll be easier to work with on the stuff that I want to do, and it'll be easier to work with on stuff going forward. The downside is that I will have to tear out a bunch of work that already exists on the model and redo it using the blend shapes. So that part's gonna suck, but I think it will be worth it to have a better, more performant model that I'll be able to use more in the future. So that's kind of the next step, I think. I want to start clean up what I have going on right now, and then I'm going to see about doing that. And of course, I think the important thing is that I'm going to save off a copy of the file, so if I realize, oh no, this is actually cooked, there's no way that I can use this, I can just go back to the backup file and proceed from there, and I'll be okay. Well, Sonic, welcome in. Happy Choomsday. I hope you're doing well. So yeah, that I think is progressing well. I'm feeling pretty good about it. I've been talking with my brother a lot about the Final Fantasy 14 stuff. There's one little clarification. So standing, there's a point that you made. Yes, hello, Sonic. Good to have the Chooms here. So with Final Fantasy 14, it is coming to the Switch too, and the accounts are shared, right? So you can play your Lalafell Black Mage Hash Brown Deluxe on your PC or your PlayStation, and then take it onto your Switch too. That is going to be cross-compatible. The subscription is not cross-compatible. So right now, if you get a subscription or a time card on your 14 account, it will share across your PlayStation and your PC. You will be able to play on whichever platform you want with that single cost. From the sounds of things, they could not get Nintendo to play ball with that. So essentially the best deal that they could get is you do not need a Nintendo Live whatever subscription or internet service thing they require, right? Exactly. So you do not need to pay the $15 a month or whatever to access Nintendo Online. But you do need to pay, what I was told, an additional 50% subscription. So if you subscribe to 14, you need to pay, I think it's still $15 a month. You need to pay another $7.50 for the Nintendo subscription. And then you'll be able to access your account from both platforms. Yeah, it is not great. But you know, my brother was saying he was watching Yoshida explain this, and like you could tell in the way that he was saying is like, this is the best that we could get Nintendo to agree to. We tried really hard. And this is what we could get them to sign on with. So, like, I'm sure that they would have been like, no, we want a separate subscription, and they still gotta pay for Nintendo Online, and it's like, guys, please. Also, hello, Mage. Welcome in. Happy Choomsday. I hope you're doing well. You remember when Elite came to the PlayStation to play a game, multiplayer had to have PlayStation Plus. I hate those whole systems. I understand on like a very basic level they are essentially paying for the ability to have inter-game connectivity of stuff like friends lists and achievement lists and all that shit, but the fact that like that's just kind of a given on PC games and you have to pay for it is so scummy, especially in this day and age. I get when it was like 2004 and those features were not inherent, but it's 2026. Get the fuck over yourselves. So much better because some PlayStation recent changes going forward. All games require an online check-in or you lose access to the game. Like with games that you bought through the PlayStation Store? When did they announce this? But yeah, I bought a PlayStation, a PS4 off of a friend who was moving and, you know, needed to get rid of it. I never bought PlayStation Plus. I was just like, this is going to be a single player platform because I refuse. If I want to do something multiplayer, I will get it on PC because I'm not paying Sony X amount of money to have comparable performance to what my PC can do in terms of online gameplay. That's absurd. So yeah, that part is not much fun, and it is just kind of another reason to not get a Switch 2 for me. But that, I think, is kind of the weakest bit. You don't log in to the online for 30 days. Games going forward, you will access until you log back in. Ew. I'll have to look into that because that sounds incredibly scummy. It's fighting piracy or some bullshit. I don't know. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. The rest of what they announced. So, my brother and I, we were going kind of nuts about this, and I have to, you know, we kept having to remind ourselves of like, a lot of this is preliminary. We have not seen specifics. It is still under development. So there's a lot that could change. But what they have shown is very exciting. And dropped it with no warning and people wouldn't load their consoles until they accepted the terms. it's a good thing Steam is on our side. It's a good thing that Steam is a consumer-friendly platform, because that is the only thing that is really keeping Steam PC from falling into the same shit. So right now it's a console L, but there's nothing that really says that PC won't go the same way at some point. So what they were showing. So there was a bunch of stuff that they were showing at FanFest that was just kind of like, okay, yeah, it's a bunch of cosmetic stuff. That makes sense. A lot of the community, really loves their cosmetics and their character customization. You're giving more stuff for that, and that's cool, right? And then they started talking about changes to the regular grind system, right? So right now, you have a certain number of tombstones that you can cap per week, and you have daily roulettes. So your best bet, essentially what you want to do is log in on a effectively daily basis to do your roulettes, right? And I've complained about this, that all you really need to do is sit at your house and queue your roulettes and just do them, and then you log out and you're done. And it's very boring, it's very impersonal, and you only really play like a fraction of the content in the game, essentially whatever is relevant through the roulette system. So they're changing it, and I was watching the keynote in part. I wasn't really focused on it, but essentially what they seem to be doing is changing to a completely weekly model, where say you have like 3,000 points that you need to accrue over the course of the week, and running a dungeon will accrue you a number of points. Running a trial will accrue you a number of points. Running PvP will get you points. And doing stuff through roulette or through Party Finder will get you those points. It doesn't have to just be roulette based. So if you and your friends decide we want to farm some trials and get some mounts, you will also be accumulating your weekly progress in the process of doing that. There is no division now. I'm like, so that's, initially I was like, okay, it has to be every week. Yes and no. So the thing about it has to be every week if you want to keep with the bleeding edge of content. Right? The rate that content comes out, you really do not need to play every week. You do not need to get all of your tombstones or whatever they're going to do going forward for armor unlocks. That is really only if you want to do like the top level content at as fast as you can do it. Otherwise, I don't know, just get it as you get it. There is an amount that you can get every week, but I don't know. Frankly, you really don't need to. One of the other things that they're doing is right now, your character has gear that is tied to your class, right? So if you have Dragoon, you're going to be using the maiming set of gear, which is used by Dragoons and Reapers. And if you're a tank, you're going to use I don't remember what the tanking gear is called, but there's a gear that is shared by all tanks. And there's a gear that is shared by all healers, etc., etc. So, if I want to level and then gear my Dragoon, I have to get Dragoon gear. And if I want to switch over to Monk or Bard, I need to get gear for those. So apparently what they are doing now is setting it so that your eye level is universal, right? You still have to level every job individually, but once the job is capped, the eye level is just shared across all of them. So you don't even need to get the same, like you don't even need to work as hard to gear all of your jobs. So the requirement of making sure that you're capped out every week goes down even more, right? Like the only reason that that would have been really important before is, oh, you know, I need to get my main geared out as fast as possible and then jump over and gear secondaries as quick as I can, right? At this point, it's like, well, now I'm gearing my main and my secondaries at the same time, so the need is even less than it was before. He was watching all this shit from the beach with a Mai Tai, and then people call him a monopoly. They are literally the do nothing and win company. You love to see it. Also, the PS5 is going to cost more, so enjoy that. It's so bad. So I was watching that and I'm like, okay, that seems fine. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, okay, that actually seems like a really good change. But then they went into the big one, which the more we brainstormed about it, the more we saw some of the again, very preliminary specifics, the more I'm like, oh, this fucking rules. So they're introducing a new, not a new combat system, but a new ability rotation set for every job in the game. So a lot of the abilities will be very familiar in terms of like their names and their general purpose within your kit. But the way that they interact with each other and what they do and the damage that they apply is going to be completely different. So they're getting, essentially they're taking everyone off of the 2-minute burst rotation. Right? Essentially the way that the entire game has been functioning for the last like 6 to 8 years has been all of the abilities are going to circulate around a 2-minute cooldown window, and everyone should try and synchronize to hit all of their hardest abilities and their cooldowns on that 2-minute window, because if you don't, it's a DPS loss. And it has dragged the meta through dirt and rock and glass for multiple expansions of like, if you are not contributing to the damage window, what are you doing here? You are not helping, to the point that healers are prioritizing their damage output over their healing. And it frankly sucks. So they have basically just said, yeah, the 2-minute burst window, it's gone. We're not designing anything around it. We are not building for it. And you should not expect that that is going to be a thing with how this works. Which I was just kind of like, go on. So they showed a couple of classes with more specifics, but obviously like everything is still very early in development, and what they were showing just had like dev build UIs, so they have not committed to anything in terms of numbers or exact performance or whatever. But like, you know, that point that I was making about how healers are prioritizing damage output in fights. One of the things that they were showing was they used White Mage as an example. White Mage gets a buff to their damage for using healing spells. So before, you had Cure and Curaga and, things that you would use your main cooldown, your global cooldown for heals, but you would never want to spend those because those get prioritized by attack spells. So you would only be using your off-global abilities that heal, and that would just sort of be the expectation. Now, when you use healing spells, when you use your global heals, you get a buff that increases the damage of your next attack. And the attack spells have no cast timer. So the sort of immediate implication is, healer, you should be focusing on healing. The party is going to be taking damage, and you should be using your healing magic to mitigate and restore that damage. And then in between those, and when you need to dodge mechanics, you can weave attack spells in. But the healers should be healing, which is like, is that legal? So much of what they showed this weekend was like, please look forward to more information in the next Fan Fest at Berlin. Which is normal, right? They do a 3 Fan Fest rotation. So they'll do one in the Americas, they'll do one in Europe, and they'll do one in Japan. And usually the first one is always very light on the details. Just because nothing is really ready to show yet. So it's a lot of more of the abstract ideas, some concept art, stuff like that. And then the middle one is where we start to really get the meat and potatoes. And then the final one is just here's finalized dates, and we're going to show you all the new jobs and start to show you some of the new areas and give you a really concrete idea of what to expect with the coming expansion. But this is very much just kind of here's the plan. So it looks really promising. It looks like a lot of the stuff that needs to happen to make the game work again. I was kind of an expectation that I wasn't going to say the game is going to go into maintenance mode. That's hyperbolic. But, it's going on 12 years old at this point. And it would not be unreasonable to sort of expect the game to start to hit a what's the golden years period of just kind of the people that are still playing the game like the game for what it is, and we're just gonna kind of cruise on that. I was frankly of an expectation that we might just start to see something about Final Fantasy 17 in not too long, right? The original MMO was 11, and then we had 14, so sort of following that logic or following that number structure, doesn't have to be literal, right? We would see the next MMO come off of that. It's we just need a new platform to build off of. And while this is absolutely not that, it does seem like they are very aware of what people are saying about the current state of the game, how stale it feels, how it has gotten to a point where it needs a substantial rework to maintain viability going forward. And they seem to understand that. And rather than say, well, we're good with where we are and we're sort of okay letting this, start to head for end of life, it's no, fuck it, let's do it. We are going to do a major rework. Like the last time we saw a combat restructuring of this scale, frankly, was probably from the original version of the game that doesn't exist anymore, going into Realm Reborn. Like the change from Heavensward to Stormblood, where they introduced combat gauges for every job, is not as substantial as the changes that they're making now. And there's a lot of question about, there's still a lot to see about like how the fights are going to change in behavior, how like the team interactions are going to change, right? Are we going to see more, like there's going to be less synchronization between players on like damage burst periods, but it seems like there's going to be more emphasis on understanding the fights and responding to what that is happening together. And it seems like there's a lot of ability banking as well, right? That like you do a thing that gives you charges that you can use. So, you know, it's less like, hey, maintain this perfect damage output constantly for the duration of the fight. It's, hey, shit's gonna start coming at you. So, you know, hit these abilities to bank these charges and then deal with the fight. And use these when you have an opportunity. You know, blow them if you can, but you're gonna have a window to use them before you can get your next bank of charges. So, you know, worry about not dying rather than prioritizing getting these spent. So, it's promising. It is too early to say, yes, this is great, or no, this is terrible, or this just feels like a side grade. But I have not been this excited about the game and like seriously considering resubscribing in something like 2 years. Like the last time I played the game, I just let my subscription lapse. I was not playing it. I was not interested really in continuing to play it. And I'm looking at it again. I'm excited for what they seem to have in mind. But frankly, what I'm probably gonna do, because, you know, I have most of the Dawn Trail content to catch up with. I'm probably going to wait. I'm probably going to wait for the expansion Evercold to come out so that these changes are live, and then play through Dawn Trail with those changes already implemented, rather than try and like prepare for in the current 7.x cycle. Like I'm more interested in playing the game once it has been overhauled. So I don't know, this might be the first expansion in actually since I started playing. I guess I don't pre-order, but I'm probably just gonna wait for that to go live and then buy it, and then jump back in and start progressing through the game. Honestly, MMOs kind of have a problem that, like, I would be in a good place to play the game, right? Because I have like 4 or 5 patches worth of content and story and dungeons to catch up on, right? Like, this would be all new experiences for me, which would be super cool. If you are playing a game live day after day, week after week, the devs cannot make content fast enough to keep up with players, right? So, you know, that's why they introduce currency grind and, you know, reasons to repeat the dungeon and randomized stat drops and all these things. Let me pour some tea real quick to, you know, to give you something to do week over week, because they can't make a new dungeon every week, right? They can't make something that can play, that they cannot develop content at the rate that players can play through it. And you get bored, right? Because you're doing the same thing over and over and over again for, you know, that chance at a good drop, or to, you know, max out your currency, or whatever the case may be. And it gets old. And I've heard some people be very dismissive of, you know, Yoshida saying, take a break, that's fine. It's true though. Like, you shouldn't be playing a single game every day. You shouldn't be playing a single game every week. Play it for a while, take a break, come back when new stuff has been introduced, or you have an itch to play it again. And if that itch never comes, then just move on. That's okay. You know, I think game developers have really, like, found ways to make players invested in playing a game past the point where they're actually still having fun with it. And there's reasons for that, but it's also not great, you know? Play the same game every single day. And I get it, you know, I have been there. I am regularly still there, right? I have my regular rotation of games that I cycle through. And there are games that I want to play that I don't get around to. I still keep meaning to hop on Monster Hunter. I did it one time, and I was like, that was really good. And then I closed it, and I haven't opened it again, and I keep wanting to. And it's just, you know, finding the time to do it. But like, they have found ways to incentivize it. There's actually a really good Second Wind video that I was watching today about, like, how games can be really addicting. And it's not, you know, just the loot boxes and gacha mechanics and season passes. It's how the design of the game mechanics can be so addicting. Was old school. Well, to be fair, he's probably playing old school RuneScape and something else, because you can, I've seen how people can idle in old school RuneScape. You can play another game while you are playing old school RuneScape. Hello, Gally. Happy Choomsday. I hope you're doing well. But yeah, I don't know. Like, it's absolutely true that, you know, some people just have a particular game as their second life. And I think especially with MMOs, you know, when they do their job correctly, you know, it becomes a second world. It becomes a place for you to exist in, which I think especially these days, people want to have somewhere more friendly to exist in. Just wish the rain would stop. I feel that. I feel that. One of my coworkers has been dealing with a shit ton of rain. Hopefully it lets up soon. Idles lit at D&D and the mesh. Yeah, see? You can just go about your day while RuneScape just plays in the background. It's just that kind of game. I did try playing a little bit of Star Citizen. Unfortunately, it did not treat me super well. Hopefully it'll be good. There's a lot of, I think, sort of anxiety about how it works, or what they're planning to do in the upcoming patch. And I hope it works, but it's always kind of up in the air. But May is either going to be a really big, really awesome month for them, or it's going to explode. And I'm not sure which one is going to be. Why don't we jump into the artwork? Why don't we go ahead and get started on that? I've still got a lot to do with this kid. So let's go ahead and give it over here. Like, where is this? There we go. We need to get the music going. There you go. Fingers crossed indeed. So they were showing the next patch, the one that's going to be during the big free fly event in May, is in the testing phases. Players are starting to get their hands on it, and it got out of Evocati, which means people can actually record stuff and show it on the internet and pass it around. You know, while it's in Evocati, we can talk about it, we just can't show anything to anybody. Everything is still under content NDA. So it is getting there, it is progressing, but it feels like they're rushing a little bit. It feels like they're trying to get a lot done very quickly. And I don't know how that's going to go. I hope it works, but I worry that it's not. I worry that they're going to overdo it, and you know, the sort of specter that haunts the game is the memory of patch 3.18. Sorry, my tablet is wobbling. Oh, it's sitting on a cable. That's better. So 3.18 was when they introduced a bunch of stuff to the game. They added like physicalized items and physicalized cargo, and you know, it was sort of a big push to make the game more tangible, like they wanted to have, right? Rather than cargo just sort of being a thing that you walked up to a kiosk and you moved some numbers and, you know, the boxes would magically appear and disappear from your ship. Like, no, now you can actually like grab things and you can move them around and you can move cargo to and from your ship, and like this is better. It's starting to become the actual thing that we want the game to be, which is all very well and good. I'm realizing, oh, okay. I don't think I ever realized the drum on the X-Wing, the engine drum, doesn't go all the way to the front and back of the wing. Like, it goes out over the front, but then it stops like 2/3 of the way back. Interesting. Anyway, so they introduced that, and the game became effectively literally unplayable. Like, there were so many problems with the way that the physicalized inventory worked that like you just couldn't play the game. And it took a while for them to get it back to a state that people could actually like do anything. And thankfully that was before my time. I had not started playing, so I have only heard the stories about how bad 3.18 was. But you know, it was bad enough that like that is sort of the low mark of, you know, patch releases. And I think, you know, even the developers have sort of acknowledged, like, yeah, we don't ever want to get to this point again. We don't ever want to release something in that sad of a state that we just cripple the entire game. It's like, that's good, But then they're setting up 4.8 to be this monster of a patch with all this stuff in it. I'm like, guys, don't break it again. So hopefully it works. But you know, this will also coincide with Invictus, which is the big free fly event for the first half of the year. And if you get a bunch of people rolling in to see what's up with the game, and the answer is, yeah, it's broken as fuck, that's gonna be a really bad look, especially, you know, in the year that they're trying to convince everyone the Squadron 42 is coming out and it's gonna be a major game that you should take seriously and be interested in. You know, sort of on the other side of the puddle, Elite Dangerous delayed the release of the operations, which is sort of their big restructuring to how mission systems work. Which obviously, you know, is disappointing. Everyone wants to get their hands on the operations and start playing them, but it's like, no, do it right. Make sure that those work, because if you try and release the system and it fails and people just can't do the operations, they can't do the missions, like, they're not getting rid of the old mission structure, but you know, if you try and release this cool new content that everyone wants to play and it just doesn't work, well, that sucks. You don't win anything by rushing it out the door just to hit some timeline. Okay, I'm actually gonna move these out a little bit farther. So yeah, we'll see. But I'm very happy with what 14 is doing. I'm happy that they're not giving up on the game. They aren't just sort of saying, yeah, it's getting a little long in the teeth. This is past its prime, but that's okay. It had a good run. We're just gonna sort of continue to let it be a little, you know, fashion app. And you know, we'll put out new fights for it now and again, but you know, we're done with it. I'm like, nope, we're not done with it yet. We're going to, we have a plan for what the next phase of the game looks like. So I'll be interested to see if that pans out. I am a little annoyed just because I was ready. I was ready to be done with 14. I was ready to call it a night. I was ready to say I had a good run with the game, but it's time to move on to other experiences and other worlds. And then Yoshi P is like, okay, but check this shit out. And I'm like, you son of a bitch. Hello, T-Shell. Happy Choomsday. It's going alright. We're just getting started. I'm start talking about some of the excitement over the weekend. How are you doing? There's actually a secondary cylinder in here. And I'm like, ooh, what kind? you. Okay, that's looking a little bit better. Onion, peppers, and spinach. Nice. Ooh, and it's all fresh? Hell yeah. I always forget there was something else I wanted to bring up. Oh, I've been thinking about the model debut stuff, and it's still a little early, but I'm starting to think about things that could be fun. I don't wanna give anything away just yet. I'm thinking about it. I've got ideas afoot. I'm gonna start exploring some of the things. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be real with you, chat. It's probably not gonna be until July. I think, you know, the amount that I want to do with the model, you know, some of the changes that I am making, I'm happy with how the progress is going, but you know, I still gotta finish out my current work, and then, you know, once that's done, I'll have more time to sort of focus in. You know, part of it is going to be working on the model, part of it is I do want to, you know, work more on the game once I have the freedom to do that, or the bandwidth, I guess is a better term. Freedom, fuck it. But you know, that's gonna mean I won't really have like a lot of bandwidth until the end of May and the start of June. So yeah, going through June means July, right? I got way too ahead of myself because I was thinking about I still wanna do the movie night next Monday. I was like, ooh, what if we did like a triple feature? What if we just watched the original trilogy? Ooh, but then what if we did 4? Because we could do Rogue One and A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And then I remembered I still have to work on Monday. So I don't think we're doing that. I don't think we're gonna be able to do all 4 movies. So I'll put up a poll, because maybe we can do a double feature, but I think we would probably just watch one, and we can see which one everyone feels like watching the most. Okay, let's do this. I think we need to just bring this in a little bit. Yeah, there you go. I'm gonna speedrun the film series. Every time someone blinks, the movies go fast. I'm not sure how you would even track that. It would make the movie go much faster, it's true. Unless you do every time Vader blinks. In which case, it would just run at normal speed until you get to like the second to last scene in Return of the Jedi, and then it starts speeding up a little bit. There we go. Oh, I started watching over the weekend. I started watching For All Mankind. Have any of you seen that? Have any of you watched it? Well, as if I take one more step, it'd be the farthest away from home that I've ever been. I don't know that edit. Oh, like he keeps saying it? I've only watched first 2 episodes. I quite enjoyed it though. Frankly, if it had just been like, if the entire thing was just the first episode, like a what if of the Soviets were the first to the moon, that by itself would have been a really fun story. Like, that episode, self-contained, was a really good story. Really liked it. But I know it has something like 5 seasons, so it is clearly not so self-contained as all that. So yeah, I'm only 2 episodes in, but I'm really liking it so far. I thought it was more of a far future type of deal. I was like, no, we're in like the 60s. I'm very interested in watching more of it. And of course, I've been watching Witch Hat Atelier, which is filling a Freerun shaped hole in my heart. It is very sweet. It is very charming. I really hope that the animators on that project are having a good time. I hope they're enjoying the work that they are doing, because that show is stunning. That show is a delight to look at. I love it. And it is just such high quality animation end to end. You know, I always worry about those things just because of how the animation industry tends to be. Like, even before, you know, all the bullshit with AI, like, animators are constantly struggling with, you know, impossible deadlines and crunch and, you know, poor working environments and bad quality of life situations. So hopefully they're doing okay and actually, you know, having a good time working on this show, because my god, are they killing it. It's sort of like with the last Spider-Verse movie. The Spider-Verse movie was a phenomenal piece of artistic content, right? Just that movie is a delight to look at. It's a delight to watch. I love it, and then you hear some of the stories about what happened during its development, and you're like, oh, well, this isn't as much fun anymore. Okay, that feels a little bit better. Okay, and then back here, I think we'll make the drum a little bit smaller just because it doesn't extend as far as I thought it did. Okay, that seems alright. And then I think that one's okay as well. Yeah, that seems okay. I don't know, with how far I've gotten in For All Mankind, like, it is definitely not, no spoilers or anything, but there's some stuff about it that I'm like, oh, is this kind of the better timeline? It actually seems like some of the things that happened here, I kind of wish actually happened in real life. I don't know. I think it helped, you know, the fact that the space race was a race, right? There was actual competition. There was something that the U.S. and the Soviet Union were trying to achieve, and yes, it was one-upsmanship. It was just trying to prove that they were the best at space. So it wasn't a noble goal, but it was a goal. And once, you know, the Apollo program, once, you know, Apollo 11 got to the moon, that was kind of, excuse me, that was kind of it, you know? Like, no one seemed particularly invested past that initial goal. You know, there were supposed to be at least 20 Apollo missions, but it only got as far as 17 before they're like, all right, we're done with it. We did what we wanted, right? We got to the moon. We got some rocks and shit. You nerds and your rocks are satisfied, right? We got more important things to worry about. It's like, no. The one that really struck me, that made me think like, oh, this might have actually been a good thing, was, so not to get too like into spoilers or anything, but like I said, the whole sort of premise of the show, the whole premise of the series, was it books initially? It feels like it was an adapted book series. The whole sort of concept behind it initially was that the Soviet Union won the race to the moon, right? Soviet lander was the first one to set down on the surface of the moon, and, you know, sort of looking at like, well, what happens then? One more step at it, takes Fellowship to the Ring, and every time Sam takes a step, it cuts to a minute-long scene again. It's 9 hours, Jesus. I have one friend who's a big Lord of the Rings fan. I'm sure he's seen it, but I gotta make sure that he knows about it. That sounds so deliciously stupid. But at one point, I don't remember if it's in the first or the second episode, there's like a news section of, you know, Nixon was the president at the time, explaining how, you know, he has directed his administration to begin negotiations with the North Vietnamese to wind down hostilities and, you know, negotiate a peace, because the United States wants to focus on the space race. They want to focus their resources on catching up to the Soviets, and trying to, you know, being bogged down in the Vietnam War is dividing them in ways that they can't afford to spend that. You know, the new theater is space. And I'm like, shit, so if the Soviets had won, the Vietnam War might have ended sooner. I'm like, fuck. This might actually be the good timeline. No, I've only watched 2 episodes so far, but I'm really liking it. I really want to watch more. But no, I'm a long way from being caught up with it, because I know there's multiple seasons, and I'm nowhere near that point. But I want to be. I would like to know more. So yeah, definitely on my to watch list. Okay, and then I'll come in here with some of this, lighten this up. Oh, I forgot to get reference of the ion cannon. Okay, so the blast from the ion cannon is like reddish. Okay, that works. Here, let's put, where are we gonna put the ion cannon? try and get some reference of that. I'll just go ahead and plop that in. So that's gonna be. Wait, this is against a blue backdrop, so I'm not gonna get a very clear color of it. Yeah, it's just kind of orangey, frankly. Why do I always think the ion cannon is blue? Probably because... When are the ion shots blue? Who has blue shots? Is that just a video game thing? That might be from the Star Wars games. Never in the movie. Huh. Now that I think about it, I don't know. Oh shit, right. For some reason, I always thought the ion blasts were blue. But I guess not. Don't. Is blue in Empire Strikes Back? Is it? No, cause see, let me, where is it? There. See, in Empire, it's orange. Is the lightning blue? I think when it hits the Star Destroyer, the reaction is blue. But the shot itself is orange. And then in Rogue One, it starts blue. I'm looking for a gift. Yeah, see, now I'm thinking about it, like, huh. Okay, yeah, here we go. So, technically a different thing, right? Technically a different thing. Because this is the Y-Wing ion torpedoes. But, you know, same technology, right? I freaking hate Reddit's layout now. But the torpedoes are still orange. And then the reaction as it interacts with the shield is blue. So I think it's following the same color principle. See, the Y-Wings know how to make a pass at something without getting blown the fuck up. I don't know why, it just bothers me so much in Rogue One when they're, you know, making an attack run on the shield gate and the leader says, you know, watch out for those guns, and someone gets immediately shot down. I'm like, what the fuck did I just say? They don't fucking listen. They don't fucking listen. Anyway, I think that's what's going on. That the shot impacts, and then we see this radiation of blue energy as it crackles over the surface. diminishes. If you can find an example of it being a blue shot, I will certainly change it. But everything I'm seeing says it's orange. Like the actual blast shot is orange. I'm just gonna kind of scribble it in for now, and we can add more detail as we go. I feel like at some point, it is definitely the case that blue sort of became synonymous with like ion damage or non-destructive damage. Because Star Citizen does it too. That you have, you know, ballistics are just your little hot king of metal, and then lasers are red, and distortion, which is the sort of ionizing, disabling damage, is a blue bolt instead of red. I think Elite does a similar thing, where, oh god, what is Elite's non-lethal damage type? There's something, right, that like disables ships rather than destroying them, or like messes with their systems. I never used it because I always just went for the kill, but I know there is a type. Or am I thinking of plasma damage? There's plasma. Plasma in Elite is purple. And then the default laser type is red. But then you can get cosmetics to change it to whatever color you want. I'm just gonna leave it kind of as is for now. Get some energy arcing over the engines and whatnot. I'll come back and do more of that later. Okay. So yeah, I wanted to get this in, even though it's not like the most important part, because getting this will inform us a bit of the light property that's going to bounce off of the underside of the X-Wing. That, I think, is a lot of what's missing right now, is everything is just sort of sitting in its albedo, and we're not integrating things very well, right? We're not bouncing colors from the planet, we're not bouncing colors from the shots, so it's all just kind of there, you know? I want to try and do a pass to sort of start to bring more of this property in. And then the green's also gonna create little points of interest. Yeah, I swear at some point, yeah, it sort of became like understood that, well, if it's like an ion shot, it's blue. I swore it was blue, but it's not. And then yeah, in Clone Wars, the bad guy lasers, the droid and separatist lasers were red, and then the Republic lasers were blue. There we go. Yeah, we're not gonna see a lot of it bounce in here just because, you know, the wings are gonna be kind of obscuring each other, but we might see a little bit more on this wing. Something more like this. What was Mandalorian lasers? Yellow. Computer technician lasers? Chroma. Oh, you're right. Mandalorians are yellow. And let's be real, no one at the time was really thinking that hard about like the rules, right? I don't think anyone that was working even on Empire Strikes Back realized, you know, we're codifying things that are going to exist and be referenced for the next 50 years. Luke played Darude Sandstorm instead of listening to Obi-Wan during the trench run. I think the last thing Luke would want is another sandstorm in his life. I feel like he and Vader could have bonded over their hatred of sand. It would have been a really, really beautiful moment between the two of them. Yeah, most powerful thing you could have done to ward off Vader would have just been pocket sand. It turns out. Understandable. It's true. Honestly, sand kinda sucks. You know, it might well have, like, it could have gotten in his respirator, in the actuators for his armor, and just gunked them all up, and then he, you know, basically just kind of seizes. I don't know how the Force is supposed to behave when you have, like, a bajillion tiny particulates, right? Can you, like, use force lift on all of it, or would you need to force move every grain of sand? Because if it's the latter, like, he's not going to be able to stop it with the force. So it's going to bury him. And then he's just kind of boned. Shit, why did no one try this? Honestly, seems like kind of a missed opportunity. I'm gonna shift this over here, actually, because the green of the turbo laser shot is trailing farther to the left than this color is. So I think we can sort of have that be the dominant color, the dominant bounce light on the left side. Or have it be this like mixed tone. I mentioned previously on subject of multiple parties use of force blocking it. Old Republic bounty hunter has a literal shotgun as a sidearm, not laser. Oh yeah. Yeah, like try force blocking ballistics going multiple times the speed of sound. Like your best bet is hoping that you block it with your lightsaber, which again, like, how are you gonna parry all of the buckshot? You better hope that every individual pellet gets vaporized, or you have, tiny balls of molten slag flying at you up the other side of your lightsaber. It honestly, it makes sense though. Like, it is not unreasonable, I think, that as particular technologies become prevalent, become dominant, in this case, blasters, the older forms of technology that they replace, they still have their advantages. They're just, they're so out of circulation that no one's really like thinking about them or planning for them. Sometimes technologies can sort of circle back around to relevancy just by virtue of, well, everyone kind of forgot that they needed to counter this. And then you go, oh shit, right. Okay, I feel a little bit better. Slight angling away. No. That'll do. A gnome in a blunderbuss? This is very high caliber ballistics. Schmabulok. Alright, that's starting to look a little bit better, and then yeah, let's leave that there for now. We'll come back to it, but I want to make sure that we kind of keep bouncing around here. Let's go to this Star Destroyer for a little bit. I do want to play a bit more with it. We can grab... Oh, I still never grabbed a reference to the Star Destroyer from behind. Need to double check the color of the engine cone. There you go. So I'll have this one kind of doing a burnout. Right, like it's still trying, and then, you know, this guy can be still kind of sputtering to life. Maybe this one's sort of at a similar output level. You ever had to jumpstart a Star Destroyer? The fuck? There we go. I was like, where'd that come from? There we go. Cool. How does this connect exactly? Yeah, sort of the bottom of that. Okay, I see why this looks weird. We gotta sort of bring this up a little bit more. Yeah, I had this weird realization the other day. Sounds like Line Palpatine has to act waiting for yeah, just Imperial AAA. Or what would that be? I guess it would be IAA. Oh no, ISB is the Imperial Security Bureau. ISA is Imperial Ship Assistance. And probably their comm numbers are like one number apart, so they get the wrong number all the time. I had this weird realization the other day. So I was doing some stretches on my floor, and I noticed, you know, nice day, lights coming in through the window. The light bouncing off of the ground was hitting the roof. hitting the ceiling and turning it a nice sort of green tint, and the light bouncing out of the sky coming down, it was hitting like the lower half of the wall and turning that a nice blue tint. So how supposedly, I guess it's been proven somehow, but like babies, infants, supposedly see the world upside down. Like everything is upside down to them. But the way light refracts through the lenses of the eye, I think it is correct that like the things that hit the top of the lens are going to bounce down and hit the bottom of the retina, and vice versa. So is it just the case that like matured humans have developed something in the brain that takes the literal signal from the eye and knows how to correct it by inverting it, and babies just don't have that? What's your question, Sonic? Like, the amount of things that the human brain is compensating for and correcting from the raw sensory input is honestly kind of incredible. There is a lot of under the hood processing that people like kind of by intent don't know about.
Horizon Worlds VR moved into maintenance mode and Rec Room shutting down in June 1.
Worlds VR moved into maintenance mode. And Rec Room shutting down in June 1st. What would the world of VR be like if VR chat didn't exist? Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I think as far as social spaces are concerned, yeah, VR chat is kind of the big one. And without that, I don't know, like VR, in my opinion, VR has still not popped off, and at this point I don't think it's an issue of killer app. I feel like there are apps to demonstrate VR's value. I think it's a matter of the technology. I think it is just too inconvenient and heavy for a lot of people to be comfortable with. And frankly, motion sickness is still a thing. And I think until they figure out a way to make VR more sort of generally appealing without, having a big computer strapped to your face, I don't know that it's going to get, a lot more popular than it is. But I think within the people that do adopt it, yeah, VR chat seems to be one of the most popular reasons. So without that, I don't know that it would have a lot of long-term viability at all. But that is my opinion as someone on the outside. Someone that has been watching, claims that, VR needs one more killer app and then it's gonna pop off. Lockdown. Yeah, that makes sense. Need somewhere to be social and you can't do it in real life. VR enthusiasts sound like gamblers. It's like, no, guys, listen. You just need one more killer app. You just need one more killer app, and it's gonna pop the fuck off. You don't understand. At some point, you just gotta realize it's like it's not happening. I don't know. I feel like, as I said, I feel like at this point it is more a matter of making the technology friendly to use and less a matter of like, what it is capable of doing. I think that's why there's been a lot more, I would say, sort of push towards augmented reality than virtual reality. Not that I know that there's a ton that you can do with augmented reality, at least not in the way that everyone like thinks would be really sexy to, try and pitch, but I think there's more. I think if you can make augmented reality viable, if you can make that functional, then that can sort of work back and improve the performance and comfort of virtual reality as well. There we go. I'm not sure what the first VR was. Was it the Virtual Boy? I don't know. What was the first commercial VR headset? I'm sure there were, VR units and like research purposes and whatnot, but I don't know who tried to sell it as a product. It'd be interesting to know for sure. Yeah, well, flight sims have been, going for the immersive experience. I mean, essentially forever, right? That's a lot of the selling point of flight sims. You get to feel like you're actually flying a plane. Some people will go as far as having like the full-on sort of cages. The hydraulic seat to sort of simulate the movement, make you feel like you're actually rolling with the plane and whatnot. There we go. That's a little better. Yeah, I don't know which one was first. Save for a moment. There we are. Are there microwaves or toasters in Star Wars? I don't know. Do we ever see one? I'm trying to recall. I feel like in Andor, in Cyril's apartment, or when he's living with his mother, I feel like they do something equivalent to a microwave. Obviously, the technology for either one no doubt exists. I mean, toasters aren't exactly complex, right? You just need a heating coil in a box. But we ever see one? That I do not know. There's that whole scene in episode 7 where Ray's having dinner and has the freaking like bread that you just add a little water to it and like bakes itself. So I don't know. These are fried toast. And there's the Hufflepuff. Alright, that's looking a little bit better. Man, perspective's hard. Let's build this out a little bit more. That looks pretty sweet. And then maybe more of like a diffuse glow underneath it. Just to sort of smooth it out a little bit. Sort of imply there's like more activity that just doesn't quite like reach all the way up at this level of visual depth. You can sort of arc over into the dark side as well. There's a lot of stuff that Star Wars doesn't really take a lot of time to put into consideration. Like, a lot of the day-to-day living of people in Star Wars is kind of ignored. You know, occasionally we'll see people like having dinner or something, but it really doesn't spend a lot of time sort of exploring the living standards of people very often. It is a bit of a missed opportunity. I think some of the later stuff tries to do more with it, but still not that much. There we go. That looks pretty sweet. Yeah, I like that. Right, so we're gonna go back in here. We need to get that sort of hot core for this, and I think we can sort of distinguish the ion cannon just from what I was seeing before. It's got a bit more of like a staticky edge to it compared to a normal blaster shot. So I think we can sort of play that and look a little bit. Right, where the other ones might be a bit more diffuse, this sort of has that like crackling edge. Something a bit more like so. More vibe over here. Yes, hello? No. No, no. No, no. No, no. By the laser test. There was a thing I saw, I think it was going around as a meme of someone that created like a basically a light bread knife like a lightsaber bread knife. I think it was just a concept. I don't think anyone actually figured out how to make it, but essentially, you know, just like make a lightsaber, but big enough to cut slices of bread. So you cut the bread and you get toast at the same time. Okay, are we done with this? We can go now. Next song, please. Sure, where to eye protection when making toast. Yeah, maybe a bit of a respirator as well. Just make sure none of that toast smoke gets into you. There we go. They have to consider to make a toaster out of Vader's helmet at some point in time. I'm 100% sure there's a Vader helmet toaster somewhere in the pantheon of Star Wars merch. There is no way that doesn't exist. Where is it? I have no idea, but it definitely is a thing. It definitely exists somewhere at some point in time. Now the question is, would it make the breathing noises while it's making the toast? I feel like that's one of those novelty things that would be super funny when you first get it, and then after like the 10th use, you're completely done with it. You just want to figure out how to rip that shit out. Am I on the wrong? The fuck? Oh crap, okay. Yeah, these are different layers. Okay, well let's see if I can merge these together without breaking everything. You know what? That's fine. Let's just get rid of that. And then we can do that. And there we go. So I'll have this like hot flash of color as it crosses the horizon of the ship. You can sort of have it like blend over into blue where it's, you know, reacting with the shield. Palpatine toaster is just a Tesla lamp. Yeah, you just have to like throw the bread through the Tesla coil really quickly and hope it doesn't burn before it gets to the other side. It always burns, but you know, you try, you do your best. You do your best with it. True, it would make morning breakfast very interesting. A Death Star toaster. It's just a laser. I see YouTube videos on slicing bread with lasers. The results apparently taste like I bet they do. I bet they do. So our toaster oven, I swear it does that thing where like you check on it, you look at it, you're like, okay, let's toast it well, It's only got like maybe a minute left. So you go do something else and you turn around and when it dings, burnt. Not fully burnt, but definitely like overcooked. And, you know, that's just a heating coil. If you are actually contacting it with enough energy to slice the bread, yeah, it's just gonna turn it to ash. I am not surprised. There we go. Good. Yeah, I was thinking about this earlier. So, this is gonna involve spoilers for Clone Wars, if you have not seen it. So I apologize for anyone that I'm gonna burst some bubbles, but this is, you know, your spoiler warning. And it's pretty late in Clone Wars as well, so, you know, heads up. So, I've never really understood, and I guess this is part of what the Jedi are so concerned about, but, you know, let's suppose that you have someone that they, you know, they find and they think, oh, you know, this person is force sensitive, they're, you know, let's train them as a Padawan and make them into a Jedi. And then, you know, they go through the training, and for whatever reason, it doesn't work out, I guess. And they say, okay, no, you know what, this person's no good. We are ending their training and we are excising them from the order, whatever. They make a convection oven with force in the air. I do not have an air fryer. And I don't know, air fryers were like the shit for a while, and I'm like, I don't get it. It's just a fancy convection oven, right? It's just like a convection oven that you can have at home, and it sprays oil so that you can like lightly fry things. Like, I get it. I get the appeal of wanting to be able to make fries at home and whatnot, but God, they popped off like it was the newest, hottest shit, and I'm like, okay. I'm not saying they're bad, I just never understood the mania around it. And yeah, a toaster oven isn't gonna like cook fries super well. That's fine. I get it. But I don't know, maybe at some point I'll get an air fryer. So I love poutine. If you guys have not had poutine, you have not lived a full, satisfying life. And nowhere around here. There are a few places that you can order poutine, like pubs and whatnot, but I cannot order poutine to take home. Make steak in an air fryer. Interesting. I'm surprised it doesn't dry it out too much. But hey, if it works. It's certainly easier to have an air fryer than a grill. And I have thought about, like, okay, do I just say fuck it? Do I just get, you know, the green onions and the gravy and the cheese curds and the fries and make poutine at home? But I don't have a good way to, like, heat up fries. So, you know, at that point, like, what was the plan there, you know? I've thought about, like, do I just order fries from somewhere and then come home and put the other stuff on to make it poutine? Tony Stark was able to build this with an air fryer! Yeah, built the arc reactor in a cave, and in his spare time he made an air fryer. So that they could have a halfway decent meal while they were imprisoned. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. I don't know. I want poutine. I have not had poutine in ages, and I want it. And I can't make it at home because I don't have a way to make fries, and it's very sad. The arc reactor was actually just his first attempt at an air fryer. Oh, right. So, the whole... Yeah, you have a Jedi candidate or a student, right, that for whatever reason doesn't pass the training and gets exiled from the order, but like they're still force sensitive. They still remember everything that they learned during the training, and now you're just kind of setting them loose on the galaxy with no direction and a sense of resentment towards the order for, you know, taking them out of whatever life they would have had and then kicking them out of the one that you were promising them. And I don't know, but this seems like it's setting up for some bad things. And here come the Clone Wars spoilers. You know, Ahsoka gets kicked out of the order, but she's kind of the best case scenario, that she leaves, but she still wants to do the good work of a Jedi, right? She still goes around and helps people and fights, you know, corruption and evil throughout the galaxy. So letting her go was kind of actually the best case scenario because it gave her the freedom to help people the way that she wanted to. I imagine there are a lot of situations, there are a lot of scenarios where someone gets kicked out of the order and basically goes dark. Is this how you want Sith? Because this is how we get Sith. I don't know. I never understood what their plan was with that. If they had some sort of contingency in place. I feel like they did. I feel like at one point the Jedi Order was much more extreme in how they handled themselves and their problems. But I don't know. It just seems weird to me that, like... Also, I know this was brought up more in relation to Harry Potter, but I feel like the Jedi would go through the same thing of like, you know, at some point all of these younglings are gonna hit puberty, right? And you've been like teaching them to be monastic, in control of their feelings, and maintain separation, you know, to have an objective reality. But puberty's a bitch. So what's your plan for that? Basically giving them other jobs in the order, good financial stability, a job more clerical role rather than a warrior. Other material, Aura Slang was trained to become a Jedi but was kicked out. Right, so I'm sure, yeah, there's some situations where it's like, okay, look, the whole like Jedi Knight situation is not working, and we don't think this is a good fit for you and your temperament, but we can still find ways for you to contribute to the effort and be, you know, a contributing member of our society, we'll go ahead and call it. And yeah, as you say, sort of a soft landing that doesn't create a sense of, you know, resentment and abandonment. Good idea. But then yeah, there are going to be some people that are just like, no, they're a problem and they gotta go. I don't understand. Why are you upset? Why are you kicking my Padawan out? He was taking photos of the members of the Senate. Okay, so maybe they have an interest in journalism. And then they were strapping the photos to droids and blowing the droids up. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, let's put that on a list. So I don't know. So my smallish spoilers for Witch Hat Atelier, and this is part of what made me think about it, that a big sort of thing in that world is, you know, magic is controlled by witches, obviously, but the means by which magic can be summoned and wielded is, you know, a protected secret. And if normal people, the non-magic users, were to, you know, discover anything about it, the witches erase their memory. Because a big part of the duty of the Witch Society is the protection of magic from its misuse. But it's like, yeah, so if someone in the Witch Society were to, you know, break the law and prove that they are irresponsible with magic and its application, I think it stands to reason that they would be, you know, lined up for a memory wipe and then kicked out into the world as a regular person. It's like, we can't trust you with this, so we're going to take it away from you. So they have contingency for problem individuals, and the Jedi just kind of seemed to roll with it as best they could, which I guess worked for a while, right up until it didn't. It does kind of make me wonder if the Jedi Order had not taken in Anakin and trained him, like, they all saw that he was force sensitive, right? And they're like, we can't just do nothing, but we have to do something. I'm sorry, but I wonder if they hope kicking them out after taking them from family would mean they end up dying on the street and not their problem anymore. I would say it's not impossible that some of them, yeah, might have just sort of been set up to be unfortunate victims of accidents. Certainly, I think by the time of the requel movies, the Order probably would not have been doing those kinds of behaviors or responding in that way, but I can definitely see, like, in the past, there is an implication, at least, that at one time the Jedi Order was much more, like I said, much more extreme and sort of willing to eliminate their problems in a very direct manner. Fucking dark. I can't. It's too heavy. So I know the whole thing is a little contentious among at least some people in the fandom, but the scene in episode 8 where Luke is explaining, how he failed Ben. He saw darkness in Ben's mind. He saw the pull of the dark side corrupting him and had that moment of, I need to kill him. I need to stop this before it becomes a threat that destroys everything that I care about. And yeah, that was definitely presented as a moment of weakness on Luke's part. But I can also imagine that there were definitely like periods of time and threats of severity where, yeah, the Jedi Order said, no, deal with that. Like, this is going down a path that we cannot allow to persist. I actually didn't mind Luke's portrayal in episode 8. I know a lot of people felt like it was character assassination, but I felt like the movie was kind of making a point of that. Luke had been lifted up as this, idyllic hero that could do no wrong and just always saved the day and did the right thing. He was the Captain America of the Star Wars universe. It's like, no, he's doing the best that he can, but he is constantly under pressure from the weight of extreme expectation. He's trying to rebuild an entire force order by himself, has no idea what he's doing at this point, and still makes a lot of mistakes. Honestly, I thought the way that they handled his character in episode 8 was one of the stronger elements of the movie. I know that's gonna get me canceled, but I don't know, I'll die on that hill. I thought the stuff between Luke and Kylo and Rey in episode 8 was the best part of the movie. And the port. Okay, you're right, you're right. The Jedi stuff was the second best part of the movie. Man, I hope whoever came up with the porgs got paid well. They probably didn't, but they deserved it. There we go. Good. Alright, I think this is coming along pretty well. I'm just trying to sort of make the various crates and boxes at least marginally functional, consistent in their appearance and everything. What do you need? Different... whatever. No, we don't need 5 versions of the same song. Whatever. There we go. Alrighty, T-Shaw. Appreciate you hanging out. Hope you get some very good rest. I hope you have a very good midweek. We'll see you next time. Everyone say goodnight. I think we will be working on this on Thursday. Just because I want to take that time, you know, make sure that we have a really successful pass of this one. I think it's progressing well. I just want to give it plenty of time to be fully realized. There we go. Thank you, autosave. If you guys are co-working, be sure to save your work. If you are gaming, be sure to save your progress. For that which is not saved will be lost. This is the way. A little too bright. Good. Okay. Go ahead and turn that off for now. I think we will want to expand the blast just to make it more dramatic, but that sketch isn't really doing us much good right now. Let's take this. This will make this Y-wing a bit smaller. Improve the sense of depth between the two. There we go. Alright. I think these other ships are coming in quite well. It's really just sort of working on the big ones, right? Where I think we have a lot of room for expanding the level of detail and everything. Brush? There you are. Good, good, good. You know, a lot. The big question with this is how we're gonna go in and get all the various like deck greebles and whatnot. Really build out the sides of the Star Destroyer and make it feel more involved. It's quite complex when you dig into it. More of this diffuse green glow in some areas. course people have modeled out what the turbo laser looks like. Yeah, let's just model one of these. Get that looking really good. And we can carry that over to the other one. Okay. I'm just fussing a few of the details in here. And by fussing, I mean just kind of making them up as I go. I'm sure someone could come in and be like, actually, that's not how the housing around the turbo laser looks. And I'm like, shut up, nerd. Also, the turbo lasers might actually have multiple barrels. I might be. Yeah, okay. I am seeing multiple references that show the turbo lasers have like 4 barrels to a side. Which is an impressive amount of firepower. Just turn that off for a minute. Come back and rebuild this to make more sense. Okay, so where was that I was looking at? We've got kind of like this, and then they've got a slanted surface. Down like that, they've got sort of a central elevated section right here. And then you go right there, you go right there. Sort of an arm section right there. I knew how to play the song on violin at one point. I was never very good, but I knew how to play it. There we go. Yeah, let's just dim this down. It's not going to be picking up as much bounce light as I sort of initially rendered it out to. There we go. Alright, and then yeah, this. So right here, let's line of sight this. So we're gonna have one. I saw a great, I don't remember if it was like a solid JJ video or whatever, but it was a meme of, you know, the scene in Palpatine's throne, or not throne room, but the Senate chamber, the Chancellor chamber in episode 3. You know, Windu has him cornered and is about to kill him, and Anakin's like, no, I need him, and Windu's like, all right, how about this? You let me kill this guy, and I'll do you a solid. Whatever you want, no questions asked, you got it. And Anakin's like, will you allow me to marry Senator Amidala and save her from childbirth? And he's like, that is oddly specific, but yes. And that's just the end of the movie. Alright, that looks pretty good. And we're just gonna just to scale on it a little bit. Or fill this space out, right? And just duplicate it over there. Alright. On to the next one. Bum, ba-da-bum, bum, ba-da-bum, bum, bum, bum. Okay. Alright, let's save that in. Yeah, there's just so many little greebles and details on here. Like, I don't have a great way to go in and render it in a way that isn't gonna drive me insane. Hmm. Pour some more tea while I think about this. So there's two kinds of greebling that we're dealing with. One is a breakup of the surface paneling. The second one is a bunch of like layering, stratifying on the sides of the surfaces. Trying to figure out how to get either or both of those to set up in a way that isn't gonna require going in doing a bazillion brush strokes. Hmm. Hmm. I was kind of curious what that looks like. I suppose for right now, at least, we can just try to focus on having it in a few primary locations, right? The most identifiable aspects. And kind of go from there. I guess in a way, we're sort of following the concept of primary, secondary, tertiary details, like getting all of the sort of large shapes of the destroyer to line up and feel good, and we can sort of start to break it up with variations of lighting in a few areas, and sort of continue to work our way down from there until we get to a point where we're like, it doesn't really need more to read and feel good. Feel good. Also, for the sake of argument, let's flip the image. Not as important as it usually is, but you never know when you might find a little out of place detail that needs some adjustment. Case in point. Looks pretty good. Alright, I'm going to turn the ship effects back on, just so we can have that as a clear reference for the lighting. I think we'll actually go back up here and get these guns getting into the mix as well. Kind of weird that only one of the lasers is shooting right now. I do wonder how accurate a Star Destroyer is. It feels to me like they really just go for death by saturation. Like, if we shoot enough, we're going to hit them. Not necessarily trying to be the best shot, we just need to have enough shot. There we are. I will kill as many people as I have to, as long as you are one of them. Is he wrong though? It's very annoying trying to find reference for the Star Destroyer just because there are so many different shots and not all of them are canon. A lot of them are not, right? A lot of them are fan models, or fan renderings of some type. And just trying to like recognize like, oh no, this one is from an actual thing and this one is not, is annoying, to say the least. Oops. That. There you go. There we go. Okay, let's check the top view again. Okay. There we go. Build the shape out a little bit more. Okay. Yeah, the real challenge is getting in with all these like small raises and divots and panel variations and a little shape right there that we can just sort of imply with like a slightly shaded side of it. There we go. We'll sort of continue to build this out. If you are feeling eepy, you should get on to bed. Go. There's always tomorrow. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I feel like throwing water on them would just wake them up. Well, water usually does. Sort of brighten up the bounce light from the gun. Good. Ow. What is going on here? What is this bullshit that I'm doing? It's some bullshit though, I'll tell you what. I definitely am, but I will get there. Is it around the ears? Neat. There you go. That looks pretty good. I think that works. I can do a little bit of that. With a little bit of green light through here. There. Alright, so yeah, now the next freaking question is how do I deal with all of this? So I guess what's going on here is more this shape like continues all the way down. Or like there's an invisible through line that goes like that. And then would stop here. So you can get rid of this part. I do wonder during this whole rescue sequence in episode 3 if Palpatine is like sitting in that chair watching them crash land a separatist cruiser, is like, oh my god, I completely fucked up, I'm gonna get killed. I have put my hands in the fate, or I put my fate in the hands of complete idiots who think they can crash land a Star Cruiser. There we go. That looks a bit better. Okay, and then this actually needs to level out. It looks like I am pulling from a few different references. So the Star Destroyers in Rogue One have this sort of dorsal spine that I'm going after. That doesn't seem to show up in some of the older models. But it's okay. Do something like that. And then just sort of make this a little less severe of a shelf. More angled. Shallower angle. Good. Okay. Like, out of distance, I think it's reading pretty well. It's mostly a matter of, you know, like this is 41% scale. This 81, that's a little over 100. So like at this level, I still want it to read nicely, right? I still want to have a good sense of detail that is satisfying to get up close with. I don't think we have that yet. Not on the Star Destroyer, at least. So I want to figure out how we can do that. Perhaps if I painted a giant butt on the Star Destroyer. That would be a satisfying level of detail. sort of building this out a bit more. There we go. Alright. Yeah, just keep building some of the shapes out. Without shrimping, ideally. Good posture leads to good art. Or something, I don't know. Okay, it's getting there. It's just one of those weird things of like, you know, we can keep digging down and down and down and down and getting closer and closer, and like, well, we still want to have interesting things to look at as we get to this level, and I think if we get this closer, we actually sort of start to expose aspects that we don't want to. We gotta sort of go in and fill those areas with things that are fun to look at, rather than feel like we're giving the game away, you know? The most recessed shaded area in here. Right. Same thing along this side. I think also now that we've started to build this out, we can work some more gradients in, right? Gradients add a nice level of dynamism. Good. Ooh. Ooh. Now, unleash your gradients. Get some more variation, more dynamism. Get these little sort of diagonal slats that are holding the structure together. I wonder what living on a Star Destroyer would be like, because this thing is 1.5 kilometers long. A little bit more than that. Would it feel like living on a ship? I feel like it's so much more than that as a structure. Okay. Okay. What is that doing there? Mindful of the tilt. There we go. Oh, what am I doing? Okay. Okay, that looks a bit better. Yeah, okay, there you go. Good. Alright, let's take this section. Same plan. We'll sort of copy paste it. Good. Okay. And then, excuse me. Sort of continue to play this up a bit. And sort of build up for the diffusal. We are eliminating some of the greebling, but that's okay. We can add that back in pretty easily. I think that helps sell it a lot though. You can come in with some of this really dark gradient, or really dark shade to help sell the underside of the side of the ship, right? Just try and introduce more little tech bits and greebles and odds and ends to really sort of sell the scale and complexity of the ship. That's what the greebling is all about, right? It's like, it's easy to have a model of a big geometric wedge and be like, yeah, it's really big, but if there's nothing to sort of sell the scale of it, the complexity, make you believe that there is that much shit going on, it's hard to buy it. It's more that you can come in and sort of like add level of detail, add secondary structures, build it up as a complex lattice work of detail, then you're like, yeah, okay, I believe that it's that freaking chunky. There you go. Yeah, don't do that. All right. I think it's getting there. I think it's getting there. We definitely still need a lot to sort of finish out the ideas and then really like bring it fully to life. But I do think it is slowly becoming more realized as a full render of the ship. Okay. And then what is that nose doing? Nose is an interesting sort of wedge shape. Goes up and down like that. Yeah. Okay. I think we can come in a few places here. You get this sort of yellowy light. Might be a little bit early, but you know, just a few like window spots. Actually, in the Rogue One version at least, a number of windows along the lateral ridge. We can sort of come in and get those set up. That's already helping out a lot, I think, especially at this distance. If we get too close, it starts to break down again, but like looking at it from more of a thumbnail level, I think that is adding quite a bit of like energy and then life to the destroyer. It really starts to make it feel more like something that is active. We'll throw a little bit more in that, and I definitely want to do more of it later as we really start getting into the tertiaries. I just want to test out, see how it felt, and I think it's good. I think the answer is yes. Let's see. Oh, excuse me. Okay. Let's see. So who's next? We got a little bit longer. Oh, okay. Let's do this for right now. Man, I am liking how that Star Destroyer is coming along. I think that's looking really good. All right, so let's save. Then we're gonna flip it back. And then let's do one of these. I'm just gonna turn everyone off because I want to put a little bit more time and love into Hoth itself. We got the Wikipedia reference. There's a nice shot of it on Wikipedia as well, which I will double check just to have, you know, a good range of references. Yes, I know about the fucking redirect notice. It's fine. Just do it. Alright. Yeah, let's come in here. Turn the atmosphere off for a little bit. Turn the gradients off. And then let's just go in and do another pass, right? Still got a lot of like naked brush strokes in here that I would like to break up, get some variation. Soften this a little bit. I might say, Kaiga, isn't this like a lot of really fine detailing to be doing at this stage? Yeah, a little bit, but I think it'll pay off real nice. And sort of got this like stretch, not stretch mark look, but Europa has similar things where there's sort of like a cryotectonic effect that's causing the ice to buckle and stretch in different directions and creates these lines across the surface. I think Enceladus has a similar effect going on, and Karen have been really interested in the sort of large equatorial crevice that sort of seems like the planet is like bursting open almost. I guess Karen is technically a moon. I love that Karen wasn't actually named for the ferryman. It just happened to work out perfectly, and the guy that discovered Karen is like, oh, well, great. No, apparently, I can't remember the name of the astronomer that discovered it, but he named it for his wife Cher. And then because he wanted it, he added the on suffix because, you know, that's a very sort of sciencey sounding suffix like proton, neutron, etc. So it was the Charon. And then he submitted it to the astronomical community, and they went, "You know, this is the name of the ferryman of Hades." And I was like, "Oh, of course I did." That was my plan all along. No, to do that is priorities in order. And the gods saw it and were like, we'll give him a pass. We'll hit him with some inspiration. I was initially thinking to go in with just like some noise brushes to break up the shape of this, but I really like the feel that this is giving. I like the little sort of secondary breakup. Makes it feel very, very ice-like. It's got all these like micro ridges and such forming. One of the cool things as well, and I have harped on Star Wars about this in the past, I always find it very weird that you have, you know, the ice planet, the desert planet, the forest planet, and like they have so little in the way of breakup once, you know, you get to a particular place. One of the things that I actually really love, and Tatooine has kind of averted this a little bit, and Daymar in Star Citizen sort of gets a similar treatment because of how much I think they pulled inspiration from Tatooine for it. That it's like, okay, we've been on Tatooine a lot, so we've seen a bunch of different regions. So we have like the Dune Sea, and we have this area that's a bunch of like canyon work, and it's much more rocky, and we have areas that are more sort of in the middle, and we have mountainous regions. It's like it's a desert world, but there's a lot that desert can mean in terms of its geography and its breakup. So, like the big equatorial region here on Hoth, it's got a lot of like really deep crevices, and we've got this area where it sort of fades into that like rich blue, but then we can also have sort of wide open snowdrifts, expansive fields that cover larger sections or larger surfaces of the planet, sort of as we get away from the equator. Just because it's all a snow planet doesn't mean it needs to be completely uniform throughout. Right? We can even sort of go in with different brush techniques to create variation in how some of it gets depicted. Yeah. Good. I like this. I like it a lot. Or get this like rivulet delta sort of structure going. Why? I don't know. I think it looks nice. Or give this impression like maybe at one point Hoth was a little bit warmer. That actual flowing water sort of survived through this region, but then it got frozen in place. And sort of emptied out into this lowland. Filled back in since. You see, like, if we get close enough, it still looks very, very smudgy painterly, but it's getting better. I might still go in with a noise pass at the end just to sort of give that minute level of breakup. Good. That's looking fun. I like the way this is going. I like the sort of broader lowland look that we've got going on down here. I don't want to disturb that too much. I just want to get a little bit of variation in there. Alright, and then let's do one quick thing before we wrap things up for the night. That was the wrong brush. And then put in a couple of heroes right there. Good. That should do it. Yeah, if we bring everything back in. What is this? Nothing. What's that? Nothing. Got the engine, got the cruiser, rebel ships, that's the old sketch. TIE fighters. Okay. So yeah, we'll put some more work into Hoth later. We'll put some more work into everything later. I think we're definitely gonna work on it on Thursday, just because like I want to have that time to really flesh all the various elements and ideas and build it out further. But I do like how it's coming along. I think it's definitely going in the right direction. We just need to give it some more time to breathe and develop. Yep, I think that's where we're gonna go ahead and leave it for tonight. Definitely need to spend some more time on the X-Wing. Like, I think it's developing really well, and I think a lot of the sort of reproportioning and such that we did at the start is helping quite a bit. But you know, it is the largest element. It is definitely, well, I guess the Star Destroyer is, you know, bigger per canvas, but like the X-Wing is the closest. It's gonna have the most nitty-gritty detail, and definitely are gonna need to take some time to make sure that you do that. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. I am happy with how it's developing. It's just, you know, I really want to continue to push this because I was happy with how last year's went. But I think, you know, it's been a year, and I would like to continue to sort of go a little bit further, you know? To go even further beyond. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for tonight. It is that time. I'm going to go ahead and shut down the YouTube stream. Everyone say good night to the VOD squad. And we're going to find somebody that we can raid. Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for a wonderful start to the stream week.